Hey guys, welcome back to the Yes Means Yes podcast. On this week's episode, we have Molly Jenkins, a student of the University of South Carolina, here to talk about her role as a senator and the SGA there and kind of like looking at sexual assault from a college student standpoint. My name is Faith Namchef. I am victim advocate and outreach coordinator with RCEA, and I'm going to let Amanda introduce herself and then Molly introduce herself and tell us a little bit about her role.
Hey guys, I'm Amanda Carpenter, and I'm also employed with RCEA. I'm a victim advocate / outreach specialist, and we are so glad to have Molly here. So if Molly can introduce herself.
Hi, my name is Molly. I am a junior social work student, and I have a Spanish minor. I go to the University of South Carolina. I'm a student senator. I was the chairwoman of the Inclusion and Equity Committee for a long time. But yeah, that's what I do.
Awesome. Okay, so I know that we kind of just through emails and stuff talked about the impact that sexual assault has like had on your life. Would you mind kind of like expanding on that and like kind of how this became like a passion of yours?
Yeah. So like many girls growing up, just like creepy things would happen to me. Just like men staring for too long, freaking me out. And then in high school is when things started getting a little bit, more intense. I did have a stalker in 10th grade. Luckily that never went further than him following me around campus and stuff, but that did happen. And I also, that same year, was groped against my will. So that was very strange and scary. And then I had, in my college years, freshman year, I had a friend who was sexually assaulted when she was drunk and out of it. And then this past year, my sophomore year, I had a friend who was probably drugged, and I had to stay with her, and it was just, it really kind of drove in for me that I needed to do something.
I like that.
So I'm so sorry to hear that any of those things happened to you or any of your friends, because that is not okay. So your friends, after your friends were assaulted, since you've been, because this happened all since you've been at the University of South Carolina, are these friends you're talking about? Okay.
Yeah.
So, like here in Auburn, we have Safe Harbor and we have resources that we work with. And so in South Carolina, do you guys have a resource like that? So did your friends know where to go, or did y'all kind of have to figure that out on your own?
So one thing that we learn as freshmen is we have a course that is mandatory that teaches you about how to recognize unsafe situations, whether it be intrapersonal violence or just sexual assault situations. And so we have to go through that training. So that's one thing, but we also have this resource. I think it's called SAVIP. And I'm not exactly certain what that stands for, but my best guess would be Sexual Assault and Violence Intervention and Prevention. Mm-hmm. That's my best guess. And that is where we would go for resources. I believe it's with the mental health center on campus. Mm-hmm. And yeah, they are the ones that you go to talk about possible reporting or therapy that you may choose. So
did they did your friends report it to them?
So the first one, she ended up telling a friend the night after it happened. I'm just gonna call her friend A.
Okay.
Friend A, she went and stayed the night at a friend's dorm and ended up telling him what happened, and he was like, oh, we have to do something about this, and he ended up telling the RA, And the RA is a mandatory reporter. So, you know, like, I'm not exactly certain a lot about what happened because she was a good friend of mine, but she wasn't like a best friend of mine at the time. So she didn't, like, her best friend was my best friend too. But so I didn't learn a whole lot about like what that process was that she went through, but I do know she had a kit done. And yeah, she kind of kept it on the down low for a long time. So that's what happened with that. And then the second girl who was drugged, her her brother's girlfriend decided to report and help her report. And so they did report to the university about this happening. And the university actually did call me because I was like the number one witness about this, because I was the only one that was with her the whole time when this was happening. And they tried to do an investigation, but it turns out the person who we had in mind wasn't even a student. So, yeah.
So, but it did seem that the university was trying to help the student. From what you could tell, was they did reach out and were trying to help the situation. So that's always important because we need those resources, and it's so important. Just like Faith is working on Know Before You Go. Where you kind of, you know, have resources for different students that are going to different universities. Because even though we're here in Auburn, Alabama, not everybody goes to Auburn University.
Yeah.
So it's important to have all those resources. Like, you're here from Auburn, and so, you know, you went a different path. And so it is important for us to be able to get those resources to try to help students that do go off to different universities. So, and sounds like you're a good friend. So we all need those. That's what kind of helps a lot of us get through situations, you know, like sexual assault. It's having the right people that can help you and help you find those resources. So you're an awesome person for helping your friends. So they're very lucky to have you.
Thank you. It just seems like the bare minimum of what I can do. So.
But you would not believe people who don't even do the bare minimum, sadly.
Yeah. I'm always like really thankful to hear about the guy friend that my friend went to and told about that, because he really could have just like not said anything, but he asked her if he wanted to tell the RM, and the RM, like we call it RMs at USC, sorry, rooming mentors, not rooming assistants or whatever. But yeah, he asked her all this stuff. He was actually really good about it and well educated. So I'm thankful for that.
Well, a little impact can go a long way.
Yeah. At first, the first person that you kind of like tell your story to, like, we try to emphasize this, like, just with talking and going into high schools and stuff, like, that really sets the precedence for the healing process. Because if it were to go the other way with your friend, I mean, there's a good chance she wouldn't have told anyone else. She would have just kept it in, like, all that stuff. So it's really good to hear, especially as a male, I guess, too. Like, that's really great to hear that he was informed and that he was being a good friend. So yeah, we try to emphasize that, just to be a good friend and just to believe them when we go in and talk to our high schoolers and soon to be college students too.
Okay, so Molly, not only are you a social work student, but you're also with the student government. So can you tell us a little bit what you do with that, and how it's regarding the sexual assault, how they can be a resource or be helpful?
So I am a student senator. I was elected by other social work students to represent them. There's 2 social work senators, and there's 50 total senators. And we're like the legislative body, so we write all this kind of stuff, and unfortunately, it's a little bit difficult to write legislation for sexual assault, like intervention, prevention, that kind of stuff, because most policies are, national or statewide policies that we can't really change ourselves. But it's definitely something worth looking into for me. However, there is a campaign we have called the What's My Name campaign, which kind of came forward after what happened to this woman named Samantha Josephson. This was national news for a while. Samantha was in a situation where she was in the bar district, 5 Points, and she was alone, and she ordered an Uber, and a car pulled up, and she got in, and she ended up being killed by that person. So we started a campaign called the What's My Name campaign, so that if you get in a ride share, you ask them what your name is, or you'll wait for them to say your name to you. And like other safety stuff like that, to prevent other people from being victims of violence or sexual violence in any kind. So that's something we talk about a whole lot. And it's in part with student government, but a lot of just normal students also are part of this campaign.
That's awesome. It is very important, especially with, when you go off to, college, a lot of the time you're either walking, riding a bike, or you're using an Uber or Lyft or some kind of system like that. So it is very important to educate people about, not only college students, anybody at any age, because sexual assault does not discriminate at all. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't really matter what age or where you're at. It's just important to know those safety guidelines before we get in a car, because unfortunately not everybody are good people and want to be social workers like all of us. So it's definitely, important. So that is good, because, a little impact can go a long way. So as long as people are working together, eventually, it may take years, but, at least having your voice out there, because sometimes we have to be the voice that other people are just not able to be. So that's so important. And that's really cool that you're doing that. So that's cool.
Yeah, I definitely see y'all seem to be going at sexual assault from like a prevention angle, which I think is, with college campuses, is almost kind of necessary, just because it's just so pervasive. But that's very interesting. I like that campaign. It's like USC, like your universities, that y'all started it?
Yes, we did, because Samantha was a USC student, and she was actually about to graduate.
Okay.
So yeah, it was really sad when it happened. I really remember it happening, because this was last year. And I remember all these posters coming out on social media, like, where's my friend Samantha? We haven't seen her since last night, like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, and especially in college towns where Ubers are being used because people are probably under the influence of alcohol. So their judgment's already impaired. So I think that's a really good thing to hone in on, making sure that you are being safe in the situations and using these apps, because people will find a way to manipulate just about anything. So kind of going off of that, how would you say that sexual assault is viewed on your campus? And then how would you say that it is viewed in your town? Now you can either address, I guess Amanda said you live in Auburn.
Yeah. Okay,
so you can either address Auburn, or you can talk about just the South Carolina, what city you're in.
So I'm going to talk about campus first.
Okay.
So far, from all of the experiences that I've personally had, sexual assault victims and survivors are usually held up. They're very much supported. From what I've seen, I'm not certain about everyone, but there has been a pretty good environment for survivors to be in. And I'm not sure about Columbia, South Carolina, because it's such a huge city. But so far, all of my personal experiences have been very positive, and I know that there are tons of resources. So far, it's been pretty good.
Good. Very glad to hear that. I think having those resources makes a huge difference because you have more people talking about it, you have more people to reach out to. Yeah, I think that's really great. I'm glad to hear that your campus is seeming to take like good action towards it, because I know there are so many who are not. So
yeah, it's always like, it's made me feel a lot safer and just a lot better going there, knowing that like if something were to happen to me, I'd be supported and I'd have resources that I could go to.
Yeah.
And being so aware of them is another thing that just makes me feel so much more comfortable.
Yeah, I will say, so our agency, we have, goodness, probably like 70, 80 volunteers who are Auburn students. And when they come in for training, we ask them about, you know, how familiar are you with Safe Harbor, which is basically us on campus. Like, they're like victim advocacy, like to the max. For a college student, they could do just about everything or anything they would need. Get them food, get them set up with a dietitian, get them class excuses, anything like that. And goodness, none of them know. Like, none of them are even aware of the service. And these are the individuals who are taking time out of their day to come talk to us to do training, and they still don't know. So I can't imagine what the average person knows. So it's really sad. I'm glad that y'all had that introductory course for classes. That's really important. I really think that every college should kind of start doing that, just because, I mean, goodness, college is so different from high school. Like, it's a new world. There's a college culture, drinking, all of that stuff. I think something that would be really beneficial to just even talk. So I'm glad that your university seems to be taking a step in the right way. But yeah.
Yeah, we even
super. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, we have this actual like university course called University 101, which is basically the how to college class.
Yeah.
And it also started at USC, but a lot of other universities are kind of like taking that idea and running with it.
Yeah.
But it teaches you about like what's on campus, what's expected of you as a student, how to succeed. So they often tell you about like the mental health services, the sexual assault services, student health, just in general. Like, that's a big portion of it as well. So
yeah, no, that's huge. Honestly, that is.
That's so important. Just like, you know, Faith was saying, and a lot of our volunteers that, you know, come in, they are, you know, human family development study students. They're social work students. So they are, in some of their classes, sexual assault, you know, with trauma is mentioned in those classes. But I mean, if you have someone that, you know, is an accountant or something, they would never probably even hear about Safe Harbor. And, you know, maybe more of the classes that, just any of those classes, you know, besides those classes that talk about, you know, human development and stuff, they would never hear it. And so it's important that everybody hears that, because just like you were talking about your friend earlier, I mean, it's important for everybody to know, male, female, everybody needs to be aware of the resources like, you know, Safe Harbor and other resources, or what to do. Because there is a chance that you're going to know someone that it's happened to, or it could even possibly happen to you. And so a lot of people, I think, just close their eyes to it, and they're like, well, that's never going to happen. That's never going to happen to me. It's never going to happen to somebody I know. But, you know, when you're involved in college and you're around a lot of people, you know, it can happen. Just like, I mean, it happens to children, it happens to elderly. So, yeah, it's pretty important. So that's awesome that your school is going ahead and taking that step forward. Yeah, for sure. Molly, what would be your final message you have for survivors, or just want the community to know, or just anything that you want to say to survivors?
So sexual assault and sexual harassment are unfortunately very common, but one thing that does mean is that you're not alone if you experience one of these kind of things. So there are people who will understand what you're going through. And if someone is a denier or makes you feel unsafe, just don't let that one person make you feel like you can't talk about your experiences. Talk to somebody else, because I'm sure one person in your friend group has probably experienced something very similar and would be a very good person to talk to about that. They'd probably be very supportive for you. So there's love for you everywhere, and just know that you can find it. You just have to look for it.
I love that. I do.
I like it.
Yeah. So do you have anything else that you want to talk about? Any other comments you think you want to share before we sign off?
No, I guess like the only other thing I would want to say is like, if you are a friend of someone going through this kind of thing, ask them what they want to do, encourage them, but don't force them to, report or go through like their services, like however they're available to you. Be a supportive friend. If you are present when something happens, be a good witness. Don't just stand by. And so, yeah, just like be alert and be supportive to the people around you.
Definitely. It's really on all of us to make sure that we're watching out for our friends, we're watching out for others, taking that bystander steps. But all right. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We've really appreciated it, and really appreciated like your insight as a college student and like working on a legislative body. But thank you guys so much for watching, and we will see you next week.
Bye. Thank you, Molly.
Bye. Thank you. Thank y'all for having me.